next event is under the medical Olympic ring, and the event is hurdles. Hurdling is all about technique and preciseness to breeze over that hurdle platform. If you don't have your steps down, you will not succeed. Our next athlete will demonstrate the Montessori technique in action and how it places an individual in a no-fail, engaging environment. Marc Raben is a champion and advocate for older adults. He believes in focusing on what an individual can do so they preserve value, dignity, and passion. He advocates for purposeful programming and person-centered care that encompasses social, intellectual, physical, and spiritual components. Marc currently serves as the resident life director at Lutheran Home in Arlington Heights, Illinois. On an interesting personal note about Marc, he is an avid professional mountaineer and has climbed over 350 glaciated mountains across the world. I think we need to have him back for the Winter Olympics. Let's please welcome Marc Raben. Marc, you need to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear and see you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I would love to thank the Memory Care Coalition of Chicago for inviting me to this event, but I wanted to start with something here. See if this works.
We hear music, but no screen.
Okay, well, it is Friday, and definitely when we're talking about the Montessori method, there are some hurdles that we need to overcome with that. And with that, I'm going to start my presentation here. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the Montessori method and how it can be used to help residents with dementia. Now, we are going to take sort.
Are you sharing a screen right now?
Should be. Let me just see here.
Marc, when you share screen, you have to select the window that you want to share.
Okay. Oh, the joys of technology. Okay, here we go. We select the screen. And
okay, now you're going to start sharing.
Okay.
Now start your presentation from the beginning.
Okay.
Slideshow, you're good. Now go to the left. Yeah.
All right. So I learned a few things today because, you know, technology, usually when I present these types of things, I do it in person. So this is a learning experience for me as well, and thank you for everyone. So when we talk about the Montessori method today, we're gonna actually talk about how it works, how it can benefit residents, how it can benefit everyone, from someone living at home to residents with dementia. Again, as I had stated before, we are going to take a high-level approach on this because it is a very massive undertaking in implementation and things of that nature. So hope you enjoy. So, you know, I think it's important that we know about who this particular philosophy was named after and what her accomplishments were. So, you know, who in fact was Maria Montessori? She was born in the late 1800s and died in the mid 1900s. And she was an early pioneer in childhood education. And, you know, sometimes when I was younger, I'd be driving, you know, to go climb a mountain, as Linda said, and I'd drive through Tennessee and I'd see a little sign that says Montessori School. And I didn't really know what that was until, you know, recently. So these schools that she put together, she has a very amazing story of her life. As I said, she was a physician, and she opened her first school in 1907. And by 1925, there were over 1,000 Montessori schools opened in the United States. She earned 2 Nobel Peace Prize nominations. So she's a very accomplished young lady, and the first female doctor in Italy. So that we're not reading the slides about her, just some key points that we want to know about her is that, of course, at the time when she was growing up, Italy was very conservative, and she tried to break out of some of those limitations and sort of walk to the beat of her own drum. And she studied, and her father did not support her decisions in becoming a doctor. However, she did go on to graduate in 1896 and became the first female doctor in Italy. Now, Maria Montessori studied pediatrics and psychiatry as her specialties. During the time that she was there, she observed that intrinsic intelligence was present in children of all economic backgrounds. So she began to sort of work on a technique in which she tested, and the results were absolutely amazing. So, you know, she then went on to do public speaking and advocate for women's and children's rights. Her legacy is a pretty amazing one. And so instead of talking about her, let's actually talk about what she accomplished. So, you know, some of the things that I like to talk about, you know, we talk about the epiphany of person-centered care. Like, where did this come from? I know about 5 years ago or a few years ago, state regulations started to add that person-centered care element into state surveys. What I say about that is, if we're now starting to focus on person-centered care, what were we actually doing then? Group care? So, you know, what I've learned in being in this industry for almost 10 years is that, you know, each person is an individual. They have a story, they have a name, they have a history, they have family. And we really have to take the time to get to know these individuals, to understand their past, so we can better serve them. The way I treat people is, how would I want to be treated if I was in memory care? How would I want my mom to be treated if she was in memory care? So really, in my opinion, it's a very simple concept, person-centered care. It's not a complicated thing. It doesn't require endless discussions on it. First of all, everyone has value. Whether you were a housewife or whether you were a CEO, everyone in this world has value and something that they can contribute to a community, to society. The question is, how deep are you going to dig to get that and pull it out of them? So we have to look within the beauty of each person that we come in contact with. We have to find these things. And I know we're in a busy industry. We have a lot of residents to take care of, but we always have to remember that each person that we come in contact with is a beautiful person. Someone that has all this to offer, not only to us, but also to the community. So, of course, a lot of the things that have been discussed today are really focusing on what someone can do, not what they can't do. It's a very simple thing. We talk about the Stephen Hawking, and he was diagnosed in 1963 with motor neuron disease, and they gave him 2 years to live. He died 55 years later. And if we looked at Stephen in the middle of his life in his wheelchair, the general consensus of a lot of people would be like, potentially, and to feel sorry for that individual, right? And that's really not what we're looking for, because if we judge him like that, all the beauty that he had and had inside him would be completely lost. And, he was asked sort of later in his life about, what happened, how he felt when he was diagnosed with this disease. And very telling what he said. He said that getting this disease was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I could free myself from my physical body and focus all of my attention on my theories. Wow. Now, that is a way of looking at a disability that maybe probably is something that I might not be able to do myself in his particular situation. But what a way. Listen. We don't listen enough. In our silence, our path will be clear on what we should do for each resident that we come in contact with. We have to listen to them. One of Maria Montessori's quotes that I quote it pretty much 3 times a week. Everything you do for me, you take away from me. We all know what that means, right? So if you enable me every day, and you feed me, and you dress me, you're taking something away from me. You're taking away my independence. You're taking away, in some cases, my value. And that's the whole concept behind the Montessori method, is that to give back that control, to give back that self-worth, and it completely blasts out the model of a lot of the things that we've been doing, for a very long time. So the Montessori method advocates independence to the greatest extent possible. Really, at the end of the day, it extends just as much to individuals with cognitive loss as it does to children. So the similarities that Maria Montessori found between the children who were placed in the classes, it translates really well. They were put in a no-fail situation. Each child was given a task based on their abilities and strengths. And in doing that, obviously you came to the conclusion of being more productive and decreasing some of the behaviors that you might have with the children. and also with older adults with dementia. So we've been living in a particular society where the nursing model is very different from what the Montessori method speaks to. The nursing model is pretty much a model of hospitality, we'll say. And when we talk about hospitality, we're talking about pretty much doing as many things as we possibly can for the residents. And sometimes I know it's busy. I know we have a lot of residents to take care of. So sometimes it's easier to just do it yourself versus to put in the time to see if the resident and retrain the resident to do things to give them value and to give them worth. So when we talk about a shift, implementing a Montessori approach in a community is basically shifting from a deficit focus to a strength-based focus. And we've all had beliefs and attitudes over the years. But when you see the Montessori method in action, and you will see that here today, you'll see that it makes work easy. Everything's easier for everyone that's involved in the care process. So everyone is part of the care team. It's not just, in essence, the resident life or lifestyle department. In order to really look into the Montessori method, we really have to become investigators and dig down into what are causing some of these behaviors, and really, again, getting to know the residents. So when we talk about that, a story comes to my mind. I had started a job at a new community that was going through a transition, and I think it was my second day at the community, and all I heard coming from when I was in my office was, "Help me, mama, mama, mama," and this just went on and on and on for extended periods of time. So, I wanted to actually see what was happening out there. So I went out, I pulled the lifestyle coordinator aside. It was during an activity, and I asked, "What's happening with this young lady?" And the lifestyle coordinator said to me, "Well, that's just what she does." Well, that's not what I do, and that's not, I believe, a behavior that's normal. So I said, here's what we're going to do. I want to schedule a care plan with the family, and we're going to talk and get to know this resident and find out if maybe we can investigate this a little further. And so we called a care plan. We found out 3 key items. Sometimes in dementia, we tend to revert back to our native language. In this particular young lady's case, it was Polish and Yiddish. So we have that sort of obstacle that we're dealing with. Second, she had a hard time hearing, and she wasn't always getting her hearing aids put in. So there we've got another barrier to overcome. She can't hear. She doesn't understand. And then the most telling of them all was that we were told that she had a 3rd grade education, and they were playing trivia, like, where's California? Okay. I don't think she cares where California is, and I don't think she knows where California is. And trust me, if I was in her same situation, I would be screaming out and crying for my mama as well, because I don't even know what's going on. I can't hear, I don't understand, and really, I don't care. So really what worked with this young lady was more of a one-on-one approach. She loved to have her hand held. And so group activities weren't that type of thing. So when you become an investigator and you're able to really look deep within an individual, you'll start to understand and start to be able to work through some of these behaviors that you might see. So the Montessori technique for dementia focuses on the individual person and the prepared environment. So that's the key. It's not so we talk about group activities, that's great, but we are focusing on individual people and a prepared environment. So some of the commonalities, of course, we know most of these things that have been found in every human being, and that includes people with dementia. Every human being seeks a sense of accomplishment. Everyone wants to feel a sense of dignity and self-worth. We're social by nature, clearly. We do seek praise and acceptance. I know a lot of people that say they don't really care what other people think, and we'll let social workers speak to that particular comment, but we do all seek praise and acceptance. We do live in a community. All human beings, including people with dementia, have the capacity to learn. We can unlearn, we can relearn, and in some cases we may forget what we learned tomorrow, but we have that capacity within our brains, even with dementia. And we all require love. So the Montessori method, as it's applied into any particular individual, into a retirement community, into a home environment or a caregiver, it can be pretty much adopted anywhere because it's a philosophy of care. So the focus of the entire Montessori technique is on doing. So the activities, the roles, the routines, they're all created on needs, strengths, and abilities, and the interests of the individuals involved. And all of that delivered in an environment that supports the cognitive loss function. So if you hear someone that's constantly screaming and say they want to go home, I want to go home, they're telling you something right there. What they're telling you is they don't feel like the current environment that they're in feels like home. So what do we do to make it more relevant, to make it feel like more of a home-like atmosphere? We've heard a lot of things today about statistics. I'm not going to read this, but clearly the numbers that we're seeing in relation to dementias are increasing, and by 2030, 82 million, and by 2050, 152 million. This clearly requires not only research, but it also requires different types of interventions to assist residents and human beings that have this disease. Now, a lot of times, we talk a lot about drugs and things of that. I've always said that a great activity program can significantly decrease the amount of antipsychotic drugs that need to be administered. Because when you do all these things and you provide these meaningful activities, it enhances their lives. You're going to see those smiles again, okay? The family members will see. and it will address some of the excesses that we see with this particular disease. And we also know that the toll that dementia takes on individuals is really felt by family members and loved ones more so than the individual that is going through it. You know, I always think about the disease, and especially when I do certified Alzheimer's disease dementia care training, of that moment where you're sort of in flux, where you sort of think to yourself, I'm losing things, I'm losing parts of my mind. And I think for that particular individual, that probably is the most, for me, definitely, it would be the most scary moment that I could occur. But then as the disease progresses, we see it taking more of effect on family and caregivers. And we know that 50 to 90% of persons with moderate to severe symptoms of dementia present clinically significant behavioral concerns. We have the wandering, the repetitive agitation, always needing help, asking, what do I do now? And with that, what do I do now? They're looking for structure, in my opinion. And that's what the Montessori method does provide, which is structure to your daily routine. These are some telling facts here. Individuals with late-stage dementia who reside in long-term care settings participate in activities for 10 or fewer minutes per day. And 87% of residents in long-term care spend their time in no activity. Now, I'm not an advocate of putting residents with dementia through 8 hours of scheduled activities. That's a bit much. I need a nap in the middle of the day, on the weekends. So I would guess that that's too much. But no activity, and see, that's what I see sometimes when I go to retirement communities and I see their dementia neighborhoods. I see residents lined up at a nursing station, crying out for help. And frankly, it makes me quite sad in all ways. I'll be quite candid with you. And monotony, of course, it plays a major factor with respect to behavioral outcomes. So, how do we institute the Montessori method into a community? And I am going to read this because it's very, very important. The Montessori method in a retirement community setting can only be successful, and I repeat that, only be successful when all of the members of the care team are part of the activity and engagement process. So what we're really talking about is the executive directors involved, CNAs are of course involved, the lifestyle professionals are involved, housekeepers, dining. So we're talking about a philosophy of a complete culture transformation. And so it's not something to really tread lightly when you go in and you want to institute a Montessori program, depending on the size of your particular community, because it requires first a really clearly defined culture at the organization, and then also a shift from the old models to a transformation to the Montessori method. So it's really, it takes a village, as they would say. The philosophy is quite simple. We're going to educate the senses. We're going to promote independence. We're going to focus on self-pacing. We're going to stimulate and motivate. And here's one of the keys. Put the residents in a no-fail environment at all times. They cannot fail. Everything is a success. And what you get with all of that when you do all of these types of things with the Montessori philosophy is a higher sense of worth and self-esteem. So why use Montessori, you know? So, you know, one of the elements in the success of Montessori for dementia is being aware that each person is a whole human being, never to be defined by a disability. You know, when we talk about things like successful aging, we hear those words a lot. I was involved for many years with an organization called Masterpiece Living. And towards the end of his life, Jonas Salk, who created the polio vaccine, did a 10-year study with the MacArthur Foundation based here in Chicago and Dr. Robert Kahn on what is successful aging, what goes into it. And what Dr. Salk found was absolutely amazing. So he wanted to, you know, he found a doctor by the name of Dr. Roger Landry and Dr. Larry Landry, and tried to figure out how to take this massive data and put it into action, actually with metrics backing it. What the 10-year study found was that 70% of our aging journey is due to lifestyle choices, and 30% are due to genetics. Now, that was amazing. Now, how is that done? Now, how do we implement that? Well, what they came up with was 4 components, and we've seen things like 6 components or 8 components, and surely there can be 10 components. Social. Are you social? Intellectual, physical, and spiritual. So when we talk about the social aspect, you know, residents that move into a retirement community are very social a lot of the times. So they make friends, increases endorphins, they have things to look forward to, and we see that. You know, there's probably someone very close to me right now, not necessarily here, but in an apartment, that's sitting watching soap operas right now, and maybe has somebody come to visit them once a week, once a day. That's probably not going to help in that sort of successful aging mantra. And then we've got the intellectual component. There is sort of a misconception that as we get older, the neurons in our brain just cease to fire. If you do have a condition, yes, that is the case. But what are we doing to actually fire them? And that's the key right there. What are we doing? You know, we wake up, we drink our coffee, we take the dog out, we're doing all these things. Go home tonight, I challenge you, and eat dinner with your non-dominant hand. Put on your pants, the other leg first. Now be careful with all these. I'm throwing disclaimers out everywhere on this. And those neurons will start to fire, you know. Just like what Rebecca was speaking to, music, playing music. My last community we had, we taught ukulele classes, different things of that nature. We taught Chinese, learning a different language. That game, Sudoku, who plays that? That's great, because that will stimulate those neurons to fire. And crossword puzzles, word seeks, not so much, because you're actually recalling information that you already previously know. From a physicality standpoint, you don't have to do much, just get your heart rate up a couple times a day. So if you're sitting at home watching television, You know, find your cat, maybe curl your cat or get up and march in place during the commercial, if there is a commercial, and just get that blood moving. And spirituality is a major component because what this disease takes from us, it can rob us of everything. Everything. But the one thing that it can't touch is our soul. So we have to feed the soul. And that's one of the most important things in my role and how I deal with people with dementia is how do we feed their soul? And spirituality is different from a lot of people. I love to climb, as Linda alluded to, tall glaciated, ice-filled mountains. Some might say that's just, you know, not spiritual. But for me, you know, taking one step and one step and one step and hearing my own breath, that's a spiritual experience to me. And then getting up to whatever summit we're looking for. In my case, it might be a mountain. In another case, it might be the Montessori Method or things of that nature. So that's also important. So when we look at the Montessori Method, so taking that all into account, what I just said, we can destroy the graph. Okay, we were born, we hit 40, and then we see those graphs, right? And then it's a toboggan ride straight to hell, pretty much, of pain and endless suffering all the way down. That's probably not the way that I would like to do this. But by using those 4 components that I just spoke of, we can stay at the top of that peak when we hit 40 and go along by using the social, intellectual, physical, and spiritual, and then we come to a cliff and we don't wake up one morning. So the concept behind that is also a concept based on a book by Dr. Roger Landry, Live Long and Die Short. All of these particular components can be applied to residents with dementia, older adults, so all of these things. So when we talk about the Montessori, we need to look deep. I'm always big when I hire people or when I'm working with residents to leverage human capital. What can I use from, say, AL to help in memory care? Can they teach art classes? Maybe they were an art teacher, things of that nature. So hiring associates that have skills and talents that they want to bring to the table, all those types of things. So all of those things bring that into scope and bring extra ammunition to the situation. So we find the person behind the dementia, and we need to figure out why is something happening? Why is a behavior, a particular behavior that they're having happening? What is it? When is it happening? And really, at the end of the day, we have to look at another thing that's very, very important as well. When is it not happening? That, for me, probably is the most telling sign of how we can create some interventions of when these behaviors are not happening, that we can really find out and really drill down and find out how to control some of these behaviors that come from this disease. So I call, it pieces. Some people call it something else. We have to look at the physical status, the intellectual capacity. We have to look at the emotional health, their cognitive capabilities, the environmental factors, and their cultural and social factors that go into play with Montessori. So when we are talking about creating activities for Montessori, we're talking about a lot of different things. There's sort of been a misconception that we have to really protect and covet these individuals. Why can't they bake? Why can't they have an oven? Why can't they have a knife controlled with an activity professional? These are pretty scary things. There's probably people on this call right now. There's risk management people on this call. They're probably saying, oh my, what's happening here? But what we're really talking about is when you talk about the Montessori method and you talk about how it relates to, say, activities, you can take a social hour, which is a 1-hour event, and turn it into a week-long project. First, you always want to do is form a committee of some kind of the residents. Let them give you their feedback. And this is in memory care that we're talking about. And then you would go through and set up and assign roles for this particular social hour based on the skills of the particular individual. So maybe someone will be scooping the ice cream. Someone will be sorting the bowls. Potentially someone will be the greeter, you know, a beautiful smile, right? And greeting as everyone comes in. So you can take this whole thing and really turn it into a really massive undertaking. We have residents here in memory care that do their own laundry. That's pretty cool, doing your own laundry. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the Montessori method. Just because they're in a memory care neighborhood does not mean that we shouldn't continue to foster and to support their aging journey and their learning experiences. So these are very important things to think about, you know, as we sort of go through this.
Mark?
Yes.
Mark, we have a few more minutes. There is a question. Is there a website for families that shows which communities in Illinois uses the Montessori method and approach?
I can get that to the coalition. Yes, there are a few that do. Yes.
Good. We have just a few minutes left if you want to wrap it up.
Okay. So the basic concept, we'll wrap it up with this, is some of the things, you know, here's the basic concept, okay? I'm going to show you something and then we'll wrap it up.
We don't see your screen.
Okay.
You see the PowerPoint.
Okay. Give me guidance one more time on that, Linda.
We'll shrink your PowerPoint.
Okay. Down.
Nope, I still see it.
Okay.
You're supposed to stop sharing.
Okay, that's what it is. Okay, stop sharing. Okay. And then we'll share again.
Correct.
Okay. Here. And here we go.
There we go.
Spoon, lift the spoon, lift, lift, good job, well done. Okay, now lift the spoon, lift the spoon, Good. I need the balls put back in the tray. Orange balls are in the orange bowls. Can you help me, please? Excellent. Well done, Chen. That's fantastic. You got them all correct.
Would you help me put the pegs on the container? I'm going to peg them like this. Would you help me do that? You hang on to the peg for me. Hang on to the peg. Will you put him on the container for me? Very good. Squeeze the top. Well, how easy was that? That was good, wasn't it?
You got well, Trey.
You're doing well. Is it nice?
Very good.
Okay, so yeah, you can see definitely how just a little bit of cognitive work and some coordination, he stopped being able to feed himself or eat by himself, and then he was eating by himself again. So that's really kind of exciting.
Excellent. Mark, thank you for your presentation. You certainly provided valuable insight into a new technique and taught us all that continuous learning is still achievable. Thank you, Mark.
So much. Thank you.
A copy of that presentation and link to the recording will be made available on chicagomemory.org a few days after the event. Also, remember to complete the online evaluation. We welcome your feedback. Now I'm going to pass it to Susan to introduce